Hour 2 of OverDrive continuing on TSN 1050, the TSN app, and we're up on TSN 4. Mark Rowe in for Brian Hayes alongside Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. Jama Mahlalela is going to join us in a couple of minutes. He is coaching the Raptors Summer League team. He's an NBA champion with the Golden State Warriors a couple of years, returning to the Raptors organization last year, and this is the time of where Summer League has a little more importance. And I don't know what that, I guess that gives you an idea of where you are with your organization, that you are relying on prospects a little more than the established teams. You're trying to figure out who is an NBA player at the moment, who is a G League player, and who's just not a player in general. But a lot of eyes on some of the prospects that they have down there, including Gradey Dick, who, he had a good second half of the year, but there's still a lot of development to his game, and that's why he's in Vegas right now. Hopefully this ankle injury isn't too serious, but we'll get an update on that. But this is one of those summers where someone like you who covers the team so much is probably keeping an eye a little bit more on what they're doing in Vegas.
Well, yeah, you have to. I mean, on one hand, you can't put very much stock in Summer League. To your point, it doesn't really tell you who can play. Sometimes it can tell you who cannot play.
Right.
And you can't look at the numbers and say, wow, he's averaging 20 points in the Summer League, he must be a scorer. Well, probably not. It generally doesn't work that way, right? This is developmental basketball. You're playing against developmental guys. In the real league, you're going to be playing against real players that make $50 and $60 million a year to play basketball, and it's a much different universe suddenly. So, but yeah, for Gradey Dick, a lot of the Summer League is just about something that he's not doing right now, which is staying healthy. It's about learning. It's about sort of having an eye on a guy whose body needs to improve, whose durability, resiliency needs to improve, whose bounce back ability needs to improve. He's got to be he's a kid, right? And they need him to become a man because he can obviously shoot, and they need shooting desperately, but he's got to be able to stay on the floor against men. And the body right now, it's getting better, but he ain't Mr. Universe just yet.
Well, how much is it a goal for rookies to not go back to Summer League after their first year? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to take away from, the positive impact it can have on a career like Gradey Dick, but when you go into your rookie year, I wonder how many say, I want to have a good enough year where I don't have to play Summer League.
I'm sure most of them probably hope that.
Especially if you're a first-round pick.
Yeah, you'd hope that, your option would be, I'm going to sit courtside at Summer League.
Right. I'll go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Who doesn't
watching all these punks try and make it in the league when I've already made it. But ideally you wouldn't be there. Ideally you wouldn't still be a developmental case. But we knew Gradey Dick. I think the Raptors knew Gradey Dick was not going to be a straight out of the box NBA star. They knew it was going to take some time. They knew that he had some major hurdles to clear before he could get on an NBA floor and be a shooting threat while not being a massive problem, liability on the defensive side of the ball. And how long it's going to take is the question.
Yeah.
Is it going to take 1 year? Is it going to take 2? Is it going to take 5? Who knows? And what kind of patience they'll have, we don't know. But we do know they need people that can put the ball in the basket, and he can do that.
And joining us now on the Maple Toyota hotline is Jama Mahlalela, the Raptors Summer League head coach. Jama, great to chat with you again. Thanks for joining us on OverDrive. We were just talking about Summer League and how, we all have our eyes on the prospects of the organization, but what's the experience been like for you so far in Vegas?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It's been really good. I think Summer League is such a unique time when there's so many athletes in town, and it's not only our team, but every team has their young players. And on top of that, for me, there's a great sort of coaching infrastructure, and there's just so many basketball people around. So my days are filled with sort of basketball conversations and learning more about the game, so it's a really exciting time for me.
So, Jama, what stood out to you when you look at this roster of prospects that you've been saddled with, or I guess, have the honor to coach, I should put it. You're not saddled with. This is a great privilege to be able to coach these young men. Who's standing out in the early going here?
Yeah, it's a really good group of players. Obviously, with all the moves that the Raptors made around the draft, there's a lot of new energy with the team. A lot of younger players, but a lot of that brings energy with it. So that's been really exciting. I think in our first 2 games, you're seeing a real focus on the defensive end and some real sort of forcefulness that the team is playing with, which I think will carry through to our main roster as well. And specifically, I think Brandon Carlson is really sort of coming into his own. He's just playing very well on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. So it's been fun to watch him grow and sort of have two solid games so far.
You know, Jama, we heard so much about how this wasn't a good draft, and I'm sure that that's a point of motivation for anyone that was in the draft and who got selected. And a lot of fans want to know, who is Jacoby Walter? What kind of player can he be? And what have you learned about him in a couple of weeks working with him, both in practices and these 2 games that you've played?
Yeah, for all the hype and discussion and thought, that this was a poor draft, I think that what became interesting for us with this 19th pick is who's going to be there and what's going to happen. And there was so much indecision and unsure who's going to go where. And I think as Jacoby's name kept sort of coming closer and closer to us, there was this growing excitement. And in drafting him and having him with me now for 2 weeks and some time in Toronto and now some time in Vegas, I'm really, really thrilled with who he is as a person and even more so actually as a basketball player. He just feels like he understands the game. He's got great kind of size and shooting ability, really just a pure shot when you look at it from a coach's perspective. And in the games, you're seeing he's kind of a gamer. He kind of understands what happens and what needs to happen, how to sort of make things occur to help you win. So I've been excited by him, and I think the fans in Toronto are going to really grow to learn and like him a lot as well.
So we were just talking, Jama, about Gradey Dick and how maybe, it's not the ideal situation that a guy in his second year or heading into his second year would be in Summer League. Maybe they'd rather be watching from courtside, taking in the action rather than being part of it. But everybody's path to the NBA is different. Everybody's path in the NBA is different. And now Gradey has suffered a bit of an ankle injury here. But what have you seen from Gradey Dick in the early going here? And where do you think he is on his path to becoming the obviously reliable shooting presence that the Raptors hope he can be?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, what I've learned in my years of NBA coaching is that the more experience you get, the better you're going to become. And Summer League is one of those experiential opportunities. And so I think regardless if you're second-year player or third-year player, if this Summer League thing makes sense for you, it's so good to do because you're getting reps at a different level. So for Gradey, we're actually able to sort of put him in situations that are his growth areas. So we saw last year, second half of the season, he became so good in that catch and shoot ability. He had, was really productive for us. And this Summer League is like, well, what else can he do? And let's explore it and let's see. And so we're making him handle the ball a bit more. We're putting more onus on his defense, of course, to improve that. And so I think for him, it's been this really good growth opportunity. And sometimes you don't see that in the box score. You don't see that in the final stat line. But as coaches, we're really analyzing the 1 or 2 key details that we want him to grow in.
He is the head coach of the Raptors Summer League teams, an assistant coach with the main squad. Jama Mahlalela joining us on OverDrive. And you have this unique career where you're with the Raptors 905 during, the DeMar DeRozan and then Kawhi Leonard comes in and they win a championship. And so you're part of the development side of the organization. You go to Golden State. You're an assistant coach there. You win a title there. You come back here. What I'm getting to is that's a lot of great experience for you as a coach. What have you learned over that tenure that maybe you're doing differently today compared to what you were doing 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, I think coaching is such a wonderful journey to go on. And I think for me, who's been able to sort of do it for a long time now, first, I'm incredibly blessed and thankful. And it's just a dream job. And I pinch myself all the time, kind of how lucky I am to be coaching. I think the 2 teams I've worked for are just such high-class organizations. I think you see the leadership of what Masai brings to the Raptors each and every day. And then you see sort of this professionalism and winning culture and sort of championship pedigree of the Warriors. And both have really informed my coaching now. And I think the biggest thing I've really picked up from all my coaching experience is that, one, the X's and O's are part of it. And you got to be really detailed and you have to know your stuff. But it's much more how you build your team around it and build your sort of connectivity and build your resiliency to survive. NBA seasons are really long. And I think the Warriors year where we won the championship, it was about resiliency. And I think even last year for the Raptors, it was about resiliency with all the different things we went through. And it maybe didn't amount to wins on the court, but I think there were a ton of wins behind the scenes in terms of the team growing and setting the foundation for our success of the future.
Hey, Jama, I was curious about what the atmosphere is like there. I'm not talking about the atmospheric conditions. We all know it's probably 42 Celsius and very dry in Vegas in the desert. But, you've had such an interesting basketball kind of confluence there with both Olympic teams, the U.S. men's Olympic team, the Canadian men's Olympic team having an exhibition game. You've got Summer League down there. As a basketball junkie like yourself, what's it like to sort of be at this epicenter of the basketball world at the moment?
Man, it's pretty fun. I think, first of all, I got to 47, I think, one day. So it's
okay.
over here.
Okay.
And then I think, it is what you said. Like, we started the Summer League. We got into town a few days early so we could watch RJ and Kelly play for the national team and watch them play against USA, which is sort of such a high-caliber game. So many amazing players on the floor. And then you look around and you have 30 teams, all with their young players playing. Literally, I was pulling into the hotel yesterday, and Angel Reese walks by because I think they're playing too. There's a WNBA game here, I think, tonight or tomorrow night. So it really is the center of the basketball world at the moment. So to be right here and just to be able to absorb it all and feel the energy in the gym, like these games are high level now. Their fans are there cheering themselves on. So it's been super fun.
Jama, with the group that you have there in Vegas, unlike some organizations that really have their team almost picked already, do you get a sense that there's an opportunity for a lot of guys who maybe they're going to get in Toronto and wouldn't get if, say, they're in Boston or Philly or Milwaukee, when they have such established teams already, and it's led to, the training at a different level than a typical summer league?
I do think there's a real intensity to the way our group has been working. I'm really happy with their effort in practice. We just finished a practice just a few moments ago, and there's such a focus. And I think it does come from the realization that, there are minutes to be had on the NBA roster. And so the more focused and committed you are in the summer, the more likely that becomes. But I think what we said earlier, too, there's 30 teams here. And every game you play in summer league and every minute you play, you're showcasing your talents and your skills. And if it ends up for the Raptors, great. But if it ends up for another team, we're also super happy for that player as well. So I think you see this sort of, dreams can come true. And sometimes for some of these guys, this is the moment when that dream actually happens.
How hard is it, Jama, to sort of project players out of the summer league? We were just saying that I've heard from a lot of scouts that you never really find out who can play, but maybe you find out more who can't play. Is there some truth in that? And what can you take as a coach that might translate to an NBA game from this summer league, which clearly is a different type of product?
Yeah, it's much more about learning the how a player operates. So I think you take a Jacoby or a Jamal Shed or some of our younger guys like that. We're really trying to learn, can they learn? And that's sort of the starting point. If they play well or not in these first two games, we're not going to judge them on that in terms of their careers. But we are judging, can they learn? Can they figure things out? Can they take the coaching and try to apply it as best as possible? And I think that is where Summer League is super valuable. You get to know the person much more so. And it takes time to actually craft a player into a very viable NBA option. That's a 2, 3, 4 year process for most players. But this is about the details and getting to know the person.
John, I know it's all business at the moment, but it's a pretty exciting summer considering that we have the Olympics beginning in just over a week. Are you pretty excited to see what Canada can finally do with the men's program back at the Olympics for the first time since 2000?
I remember watching the Olympics way back in sort of the Steve Nash days and seeing, I think it was in Sydney, must have been, and Rowan and that group, and sort of being so proud and watching this Team Canada play and sort of fight through adversity and be really successful. And I'm excited for that same thing. I think this group, with our Raptor players and RJ and Kelly, and then with Jamal and with Shea in terms of top end NBA talent, I'm really excited for what it looks like and how good they can be. And I think for the first time in a long time, we kind of have our guys, and I think you can finally say, okay, we finally got our guys. Let's really see what happens. And, it's great that the U.S. has their guys too, which will make it really fun. And Serbia is obviously a great team as well. So I think this Olympics might be the best ever.
I was going to ask about your take on the U.S. team. I mean, there are obviously overwhelming favorites on paper and in the sports books, Jama, but as a basketball observer, you look and you say, well, they're a little older. How healthy will they be? We've already seen Kawhi Leonard's not there. We know Durant's been dinged up. Who knows what we'll get from Joel Embiid? How much of a favorite do you think they are? And do you actually think there's a chance that somebody knocks them off in the search for gold?
I do think they're the favorite. And my years in the Warriors have taught me that any team with Steph Curry is a pretty good team.
Yes.
You saw that in the games the game here, where he's lightning in a bottle and can sort of turn the game around really quickly, which I think would happen with Canada in their game here. So Steph is so special, and I think the talent on that U.S. team is really good. But that being said, I think the game is really coming together now, and by no means are they the clear favorites to win. I think that there's definitely, Canada France potentially, who knows in terms of home team, and they catch some momentum. Serbia obviously really, really strong. There's some teams that could do some damage, and I think like the medal rounds and sort of getting to the medal rounds will be a huge accomplishment. To get there will be huge in this Olympics.
Do you get to watch it as a fan, or is it all business?
So I get to watch this one as a fan, which I can't wait, and sort of just cheer on my guys as much as I can. But I always have my coach's eye on. I'm always watching for talent and making sure RJ's defending and making sure he's defending for the Raptors too. So
that was our follow-up question.
There you go. No, I mean, like, hey, but I was going to ask you about that, Jama. Like, I remember way back, and it's been so long since Canada's had a team that we have to go back to 2000, and Steve Nash talking about how his experience as a part of that Canadian team in Sydney at the Olympics really kind of catapulted him in terms of his ability to be an NBA player and his confidence as an NBA player. Can that be something you hope for when you got a guy like RJ Barrett, that the experience as an Olympian could really allow him to take a step as a pro?
Without question. I think we saw it in Shea last summer. I think Shea really sort of stepped his game up to an even higher level than his NBA production had been. And I think everyone watched him last summer and said, oh, watch out, like he's going to have a heck of an NBA year. And that was the case, obviously, kind of an MVP consideration. And I've talked to RJ about this. Like, that's the same sort of momentum we need for him right now. We need him to have a really solid Olympics, one for the Canadian team without question, but also for the Raptor team. I think that he can use the momentum and sort of the experience and the confidence of having a great Olympics to carry himself back to the NBA and really take a big leap in his career. I think if we watch RJ and see the journey he's been on, and all of us Canadian basketball fans have watched him, this is an exciting time for him when he can really come to a team and sort of be in a super supportive environment and be in a home environment and take that next big jump in his career.
Well, you guys are back in action tomorrow against Utah, and then it's the Miami Heat on Friday, a game you can see here on TSN. You got a perfect 2-0 record so far, so hopefully that continues. Jama, really appreciate you joining us today.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
There you have it. Jama Mahlalela joining us on the Maple Toyota hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. So he gets to watch as a fan, which is nice. And
but also as a coach who may or may not be sending a text to RJ Barrett saying, shape up on the defensive side.
That's defense?
You call that defense? D up, RJ. And look, that's not a secret, right? Like RJ Barrett, we all know what an offensive talent he is. He's got the gift to blow by people, the gift to take it to the rack, hopefully the gift to shoot the ball with some consistency, which has been off and on in his career. But yeah, the question mark, if you want to be a really good team, and he's going to be one of the linchpins of that great team, he's got to play D. Well,
and they have to play D, and for Canada to have success, and I think most people's definition of success is a medal, do they have to shoot the ball, given the fact that they're not the biggest team in this tournament?
Yeah, that's one of my main concerns. Obviously, the size concern is considerable. When you think about the giants that France is going to have in a tournament with no defensive 3 seconds, you got the tallest man in the world in Wemby. You've got Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year multiple times. That's going to be a difficult lane to penetrate.
Yeah,
the French lane. Canada doesn't have that kind of rim protection, right? And I really thought they could have used Zach Edey. I think he would have served a purpose, as much as he's a guy straight out of college with very little experience at that level. I think they could have used that big body, the 7'4" frame of Zach Edey. So size is an issue, but to your point, like, we don't exactly have a roster of knockdown shooters. Like, when we played well at the World Cup last year, Dylan Brooks shot out of his mind.
Yes.
Needed a huge shot against Spain to get us over the hump against Spain. This time we have Jamal Murray, which we didn't have, and he's obviously a very gifted shooter. So that is a huge plus. Really could have used Andrew Wiggins. Of course, he's not showing up yet again. So shooting will be an issue if they don't shoot. If someone shoots, it's not an issue.
And it's so tough to take anything away from these exhibition games because you're seeing the 5-man units like stick together almost like it's a hockey game. The one thing that I did see, and I don't think it's a huge issue because they'll work it out, but you can really see who played last summer together and who didn't.
Yeah.
And, the two headliners on this team are Shea and Jamal Murray. And they, of course, did not play together last year. Jamal Murray could play. And so there wasn't the cohesiveness between those two, which you hope that they can get through over this next week or so and figure that out.
Well,
both they're so talented that you would think that they could, but that would certainly be their undoing if they can't.
Oh, for sure. Like I was speaking to a coach acquaintance of mine via text the other day, and I was saying, is Canada's backcourt the best in the tournament? And he was like, on paper, perhaps, but his concern was the same one you just outlined, is that both guys, Shea and Jamal, they're both lead guards, right? They both have the ball a lot on their respective teams. So how are they going to find that balance of I'm comfortable when I'm off the ball and you're on the ball, and you're comfortable when I'm on the ball and you're off the ball? That's going to be tricky because these guys do not have a ton of experience playing together, and it's a short tournament, and you got to figure it out quick, because if you don't, you get into a deep hole and it's hard to dig it out.
What's your reaction to this is the best American team we've seen since the Dream Team in 1992?
Well, on paper, it certainly is. This is the best generation of American players. In an era we've been making a lot of fuss about how,
like, more so than that Redeem team that had Kobe and LeBron.
That was a good team too.
Like you're picking.
I haven't gone side by side on those two teams. It's probably a pretty interesting comparison.
Yeah.
But to Jama's point, like, there was no shooter like Steph on those teams.
No.
And now LeBron was on both of them, so I guess
old
LeBron versus young LeBron. I guess you take young LeBron.
Yeah.
Kobe was Kobe, but he was closer to the end than the beginning. That was a great team. I mean, that's a tough conversation. But the one thing about this U.S. team, as good as it is on paper, I do think it's also really fond of the training room, right? Like, they know their chiropractors and physiotherapists and orthopedists really well, and maybe too well. I mean, LeBron's the exception, but all these other guys, like, is Embiid gonna, like, can you really count on Joel Embiid to show up healthy for all the games?
Yeah.
What are the odds?
And is he like public enemy number one over there in France? Like, because he could have played for France, right?
Chose the U.S.
I
mean, the U.S. kind of chose him too. Like, it kind of shows how you talk about, the fact that the last handful of MVPs have all been forward and developed. And I guess you could say Joel Embiid played his college basketball in the U.S. As much as he came out of the international scene. Like, the U.S. was desperate for a big man because Anthony Davis wasn't cutting it, and could you really count on Anthony Davis? And Grant Hill really recruited the heck out of Joel Embiid by the sounds of it. Like, we really need you, man.
Wasn't the French government involved in getting Joel Embiid like citizenship?
Well, it is a bit of a slap in the face, right? Like, I mean, it's always tough when you're talking about dual nationals, or in his case, I guess he had the option of 3 different passports, right? Yeah. With Cameroon, and heck, I mean, you play both sides of it. We just heard Jesse Marsh, the Canadian national soccer coach on the men's side, talk about how Canada's playing that game. Like, they're looking for dual nationals that want to come to the Canadian side, take the Canadian passport and give up whatever. Like, if they've got multiple options, you want the guys to come to your side.
Well, I think Doogie wants me to hype up Canada a little bit because he just texted me the odds. And, the U.S., no shock, favorites to win gold at minus 480. The team that's number 2 is Canada at plus 1,100. So there's a bit of a gap between number 1. Like, it really does feel like there is the chase for the silver medal. But it goes Canada, France, Serbia, Germany, who won the World Cup last year.
Yeah.
How to forget.
Coached by Canada's Gord Herbert.
That's right. Yeah. Greece, Australia, Spain. There's Canada's group right there.
Tough group.
Group of death.
Well, that's the one thing that FIBA's always hard to figure out. You're always scratching your head with FIBA. And how is it that Canada beats the U.S. at the World Cup, which was ostensibly their Olympic qualifier?
Yeah.
And they've got the tougher group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations. You won the bronze medal. You get the tougher group. Right. You get the group of death.
Right.
Make that make sense for me, Mark.
Well, the U.S., don't they open up against South Sudan, or at least they have South Sudan in their group, who are at plus, 50,000?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't scouted the South Sudan team extensively, but I'm not expecting a world beater there. Let's hope they are a world beater. But
Anyway, so Canada, according to the odds, the favorites to win silver, although there's a big group there. And also, like, it's, England was the favorite going into the Euros, and that's just because that's where the money is going.
Look, man, these FIBA games, they're so different than an NBA best of 7, right? Like, you're talking about 40 minutes of basketball with a three-point line that's a little shorter, with no defensive 3 seconds, with questionable refereeing. Like, a lot can happen, man.
It's like Copa all over again? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just like, so many of these games, and to your point about shooting, like, so many of these games, when you watch them, if they're tight, like, they just come down to who makes a three and who doesn't. Like, it's just like, you got an open three, we got an open three, and the game's decided. And whoever made it.
It was 0-4, right, that Argentina went off against the States. And the one year the States didn't win gold, and all you can think about is, how well they shot the ball. And it was just, and, you have your Ginobili's, but you're also like, who are these guys?
Well, exactly. But they're teams, right? Like, that's the thing about Spain, about Argentina. Like, I mean, Argentina's not in this one, but Serbia. Why did Germany win last year at the World Cup?
Yeah.
They've been playing a lot of...
Raptor great, Dennis Schroeder.
That's right. They've been playing a lot of basketball together as kids, right? These kids, they grow up on the U16 teams, the U17 teams. There's a real national culture on a lot of these rosters. So you're facing a real team in a lot of ways, whereas the knock on the Americans has always been they're just a collection of all-stars.
Yeah.
And so that could be, if there's going to be a downfall. Look, would I expect the U.S. to lose? No, but would I be surprised if someone knocks them off? I don't think so.
Yeah, and they're not best of 7 series too. Like, there's always that, where you have a bad day or a bad half, and it can lead to a result that no one saw coming. And I'm gonna get your thoughts on where you think Canada can finish in the Olympics coming up in our second installment of Confirm or Deny. Also, still to come, we'll chat with Dave Naylor, our football insider, on what's going on in the CFL, big changes with the Elks, and also Mike Farron on the MLB All-Star Game. What do the Blue Jays do at the trade deadline? That much more. OverDrive continuing on TSN 1050, the TSN app, and up on TSN 4.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Austin trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
Confirm or Deny, brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there's no such thing as no trade clauses. Any make, any model, anytime. Visit summitford.com or southlakeford.com today. We started this off a little bit earlier in the show. We're going to continue with the Open Championship. And the question is, confirm or deny that Tiger Woods will make the cut? Do you need the weather forecast before answering?
Well, it doesn't look good. It's Scotland, so it can't be good.
I have it as a high of 18 both days, a 40% chance of rain on Thursday, a 20% chance of rain on Friday. I don't have the wind in front of me, so let's just assume it's windy.
But I think that what I get from that is it's not hot.
No.
Which I think heat is what Tiger needs. Although he does sweat at an alarming rate. Have you noticed that?
More with age, I feel like he's sweating more and more. I don't know if that just comes with how arduous the game has become for him, given all these injuries, or maybe I just didn't notice it earlier. But he is the Rafa Nadal of golfers when it comes.
Was Rafa the king of perspiration on the tour?
No, he's one of them. Vasek Pospisil, as a Canadian, he sweat a lot, and he'll be the first one to admit it. I've interviewed him, and I could just see the sweat dropping on my mic and thinking we should probably wash the mic sock. But anyways, Tiger Woods, will he make the cut?
I'm going to say confirm. I think he will make the cut. I'm going to go with the Hank Haney argument here. Hank, his former coach, one of his former coaches during Tiger's heyday, has made the case that this is possibly his best chance at a major because he's a master of links golf. He knows how to plot his way around a course where the trouble is generally the pot bunkers, the coffin, the famous, nasty, bunkers where you have to get out sideways or backwards if you get in them. We know he's got that really good command of his flighted shots, the stinger, the low shots that you need if it's going to be windy, which it normally is at some point. and it's flat, right? No hills in Scotland.
Yeah.
This ain't the Highlands.
I'm going to confirm it as well, because part of me wants to see it happen, and the other part is I agree that I think he can hang on for a couple of rounds, and then it probably goes south on the weekend, just because 4 rounds of golf is a lot for him at this point. But I think that the knowledge of these courses is so important, and we talk about that all the time with Augusta. But Royal Troon, there's only a handful of guys who know it well, and Henrik Stenson won the last one.
Yeah,
I don't think he's a contender this year, but
no,
he would be an interesting guy to keep an eye on. But like it's who's done well at these courses, who knows the courses, who's going in. You mentioned Scotty Scheffler came in a week early. It's always interesting to see how guys are preparing to play a course where they don't typically play. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly not on their, it's not their practice course that they're playing in Florida or wherever else they're situated in the States. So I'm going to confirm that. It is the MLB All-Star break. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We saw him at the Home Run Derby as the #1 member of the Teoscar Hernandez fan club. There is a bromance there that is as strong as ever, even though they're not playing with each other anymore, much to the chagrin of Vladdy, I'm sure. But everyone wants to know, will Vladimir Guerrero Jr. sign a long-term extension at the end of the season with the Toronto Blue Jays?
Oh, man, this feels like an annual confirm or deny. Like, how long have we been saying they're going to lock him up eventually, right? It's got to be soon, right? When will
Before
they
it
lock
was
him
like,
up?
is it going to be more than $250 or $300 million? I don't think.
I know. It's. Look, this is it does feel like it's coming down to the wire here, right? Like, it feels like they got to make a decision. And I guess I'm going to confirm it. I'm going to say probably it's recency bias, because I think around this time last year, if you were asking the same question, it probably would have been, are they going confirm or deny that they're going to sign Bo Bichette to a long-term deal, right? He was in the midst of leading Major League Baseball in hits for a second straight season. He was their MVP by a lot of measures. The tables have turned this year, clearly. Vladdy's been, on the upswing. Bo Bichette has fallen through the floor. But because we talked about at the top of the show, Mark, I think they're doing things for reasons beyond the good of the baseball team right now. Like, he's their most popular player.
Yeah.
They've got to renovate a ballpark to the tune of $400 million. They've got to sell tickets. And I think if they didn't re-sign him, I think they kind of looking at the world thinking, what would it be like? What would attendance be like if he wasn't on our roster, if we weren't selling his jersey in the team shop? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they like that hypothetical.
And I think, the team is not going to need to spend the money that they would have if we were talking about this 2 years ago.
Yes.
But I do think that the Blue Jays would be willing to pay at least what market value is for him, if not more, because of the value of what you just pointed out, that they need someone, whether they want to call it or not, they're going to have to retool this organization. They need to restock the farm system, which is one of the worst in baseball at the moment.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to make some unpopular moves. They're going to have to get rid of players who can help them now, but they need someone to get people, at least some people, to get into the building. He still sells jerseys. He still sells excitement when he goes to the plate, even though he is not that MVP player, even though he's not that home run hitter that we all thought he might be when he put up all the numbers. But he is still, I think we have a better grasp of who he is. And I think that's a very good player. Maybe it might not be a great player. It might not be the Hall of Fame player that his father was. But at least right now, and maybe like Vladdy and his agent still think of themselves as that. And I don't know who's going to pay it. Like I don't know who is saying, we are going to go off of the 2021 numbers and forget what's happened the last few years.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I don't think that's happening.
No.
So I think that the Blue Jays will know that, and I think that they will be competitive because I think there's a lot of value in having him still stay in the city, especially if you're going to make that decision to move away from Bo Bichette, which might happen. Okay, we were talking about Olympic basketball. The Canadian men's basketball team are a lock to win a medal at the Olympics. Confirm or deny?
I'm going to deny it because it's not because I don't believe in this team. It's not because I don't believe they can win a medal. It's not because I don't believe they should win a medal. I think they should. But the idea that there's a lock at a tournament like this, I just don't believe in that. Because we just talked about the unpredictability of FIBA basketball.
Right.
The situation where, look, you got a good chance to advance. You've got a 12-team tournament. 8 teams get through to the knockout round. So I like their chance to advance to the knockout round. But beyond that, you're playing some really tough competition in single elimination situations, 40-minute games, unpredictable refereeing, no defensive three in the key, rules that the players aren't always particularly familiar with.
Right.
And so I don't think there's any locks. I really don't, as much as I do believe in Canada's chances here. And that's where I'm going.
Lock is the word that's really giving me an issue here. And that's why I'm going to deny it as well, just because you have to respect the 5 or 6 teams that could all medal in this tournament. And the advantage that some of those teams have is that they have the cohesiveness, they have the history together, they know what it takes, whether it's officiating, whether it's shooting the ball, whether it's the way you play defense on an international stage, that maybe helps them out in a tight game against Canada. I think skill-wise, Canada, you can make the argument, is number 2 in this tournament to the United States.
Yep.
And I believe in / hope that they will be in those semifinals and be fighting for a medal. It's just tough to say a lock when you have Serbia. And let's look at their group. Like, they're going to advance? I think we all believe that they can advance. Are they going to win that group?
Not
and they
easy.
might, but I think it's probably 50-50 that they either finish first or second in that group. And then when you finish second, then suddenly in the quarterfinals, you might have to play a team that you don't want to have to play in the quarters.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The group it's definitely the group of death. I don't quite understand how they arrived at this, but it's Australia, it's Greece, it's Spain, it's Canada. As many as 3, you can have 3 of those teams get through. Top 2 get through for sure, but it's difficult. Like Spain is always tough, even though they don't have the star quality that they had during their golden generation with the Gasols and who called it quits at the last Olympics, and they don't have that really high end talent. They're always a cohesive team, and we as we just talked about, Canada had Canada was 50-50 to beat them at the World Cup, right? Like they had to make some big plays down the stretch to beat them. Australia got a lot of NBA athletes. Greece has got Giannis and a lot of good Euro pros. So there's no gimmies there. And one bad game, one bad shooting night, and suddenly, you're trying to catch up and you're chasing the field. And it's not that Canada can't do that, but it's very difficult. So it's a tough tournament to win, man. You're going to need the breaks to go your way. You're going to need the refs to go your way a little bit, I think. And you got to hope that the U.S. comes in a little dinged up, which I kind of like the chances for. I have this feeling that some of those, older U.S. guys are going to have a hard time.
Well, we've already seen one throw out the white flag in Kawhi Leonard.
That's right.
Right?
Durant's been hurt. I mean, who knows with Embiid? There's LeBron will be there. I would, Steph's ankles are always a question, but to Jama's point earlier in the show, any team with Steph is going to be tough to beat.
Who did the States, remind me, have to beat in Tokyo, and Durant had to have like a monster performance? Was it France?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've only gotten better.
Well, France has a chance to be dominant.
Right. They had a bad World Cup.
They did.
Right, last year, but they're a perennial contender.
I mean, I guess it depends. Like Wemby might be 4 years away from being the best player on the planet.
Yeah.
The next Olympics might be a problem when he's figuring it out, and it's going to be impossible to get a shot off with him in the vicinity. It may already be impossible to get a shot off with him in the vicinity.
Yeah.
But you assume he's going to get better, and that's a scary thought. But it's nice to face him when he's still young.
I want to finish up with robot umpires. According to Commissioner Rob Manfred, it is only a matter of time. He was talking to the media today. I think he said, 2026? Yeah, 2026. That could be the date where they start bringing it in. So robot umpires will become a staple for Major League Baseball in the upcoming years.
I'm 100% confirm on this.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. Like, I've gone to a lot of minor league games over the last handful of years where they've been using the system, testing it out. It's a great system. I like it. Like, essentially, you, as a batter, you have the ability to challenge a pitch. Now, how do you get that ability? Like, I'm sure there are going to be managers that don't let certain guys with bad eyes challenge pitches, but you tap your helmet and you get a review, and it's very much like
tennis.
Yeah. It's very much like the people start getting excited. They put the video up on the big screen out in the outfield, and you see the ball come in, and you see it, against the strike zone, and they actually have a measurement. Like, it was outside by 0.7 inches.
Right.
Or it was a strike, and the ump was wrong, and everybody goes nuts and says, yeah, the ump sucks. That's it. And it just makes too much sense. Like, we're way past the point of watching umpires make those mistakes, and people don't like it. And this system is not perfect. I know there's a reason why they haven't brought it in yet, because it's not perfect and it's still got some bugs, but I think it's as good as you're going to get, and I think it'll be here. I'm kind of surprised it'll take till 2026, because watching the minor leagues, I think it's probably could be ready to go for next year.
Well, it's also the stubbornness of the history of the game and the human aspect, which I love as well, and that's a part of what makes baseball great. But when you're talking about a strikeout, or you're talking about outcomes of games, and we've seen it in sports where it could be off by 0.001%, but everyone kind of signs up for it and lives with it.
Yeah.
And you trust the Hawkeye, when it comes to tennis. Players will end up trusting whatever the system that they're using will call. So, I think I think the question is less, is it happening, more will it become the staple, and will they not get rid of it? And I'm going to confirm that it's going to be a staple.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it is kind of like, I think they probably have to come up with a better name, because there's not going to be a robot behind the plate.
That's what everyone thinks it's like.
It's still going to be a human being, right? It's not like C-3PO or R2.
I don't play it.
Like, it's not that. There's a human being behind the plate. It's essentially a challenge system, and I think it'll work. I really do. I think people are going to like it. I think it actually adds, as it does in tennis, in big moments.
Yeah,
on big
which
points
Wimbledon still has, but not some other team. Like, because you still have the line umpires at Wimbledon.
French Open doesn't, right?
French Open doesn't. U.S. Open's gone back and forth. I'm trying to remember. But anyways, I like the fact that there is a suspense where you have the human call the initial in or out, and then you can go to it, and the crowd's chanting, and it's like, it's out by a millimeter.
I mean, in the minor leagues, it's happened that games are decided on a challenge, and of course it's going to happen that way. It's just the way baseball is, right? Weird things happen all the time, and I just think it's just a no-brainer. I don't really see the resistance. I'm sure the umpires union's got a problem with it, because it's another sort of overlooker of their work, and they got enough of them. Yeah. We all know everybody loves to second guess the umps, but I ultimately think, like, there's a lot of games that I've gone to, just in anecdotal kind of observing of the game, the umps end up looking pretty good. Yeah. Like, a lot of times the batters, I'm sure the managers have some very stern conversations with batters that are quick to challenge and shouldn't be challenging. Yeah. Because they're mad.
It'll justify,
Yeah. And I bet there'll be guys that are not allowed to challenge because they have terrible eyes, and they're going to wait. Like, you're only going to get a number of challenges, whether it's a couple or three. I think right now it's 3 in the minor leagues. And you lose them if you don't get it right, and you keep them if you get it right. So there's, like, how guys are when they strike out and they're mad, and they're like, that can't be in the strike zone. Well, some guys, just the emotion of the moment may have them tapping the helmet to challenge, and the manager's going to be going, no, don't challenge. Your eye is terrible.
All I could think of was the tapping and then the circle on the stomach and being able to do it. Confirm or Deny was brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there is no such thing as a no trade clause, any make, any model, anytime. Visit summitford.com or southlakeford.com today. Dave Naylor will join us in the 6 o'clock hour. Mike Farron from MLB Network will join us to kick off the final hour of the show. Coming up next, Steven Stamkos, one of the best goal scorers of this generation in the NHL, also one of the best memories as he put on display today in Nashville. That's coming up on OverDrive, TSN 1050 and the TSN app. Well, the hockey world's still trying to get used to Steven Stamkos in that kind of mustard yellow that the Nashville Predators wear. Certainly a lot of fans in Tampa. I think even Steven Stamkos is trying to get used to it because as we have seen, it was an emotional departure from the Lightning, one that he did not expect. But, here's a guy that scored 40 goals last year. That Predators team was the winners of the offseason, or at least they have been so far. And the expectations are going to be pretty high for them. And if his memory is any indication, Steven Stamkos is still a pretty sharp guy out on the ice. And today he was speaking with the media, and I guess in the past that he has been able to recite details about a lot of the goals that he has scored. And he was tested earlier today, as you'll hear here.
You had an interview a number of years ago where you demonstrated your ability to remember your goals in great detail. And I wondered if you still had that ability. You scored quite a few goals since then, but I wondered if you still had that ability.
Yeah, for the most part, if I can kind of remember the game or which kind of goal it was, I have a pretty keen sense of who made the play or who passed it, who had the assist, things like that.
Do you remember the goal from November 19th, 2022 here in Bridgestone?
That overtime winner, one timer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah. Good screen by Corey Perry in front. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. And they showed the video, and he was bang on. One timer, Corey Perry in front, and.
Hey man, he's only scored 555 in his career, Mark. Why would you remember them all? That is pretty remarkable. Eh?
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what he and the Nashville Predators can do, because that's been a model franchise that hasn't been able to get over the hump in the playoffs.
They haven't scored, right? Now they bring in 2 40-goal scorers in Stamkos and Marchessault, and we had Barry Trotz on when I was filling in last week, and he was very optimistic that could be the difference between what they've been and what they can be.
Well, there's a look of him in that jersey, and Steven Stamkos and the Nashville Predators. We'll see what they can do this fall. Meanwhile, we're going to have to see what the American League can do with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as the lone Blue Jay representing the team at the Midsummer Classic. Mike Farron from MLB Network Radio is going to join us after the break to kick off the 6 o'clock hour on TSN 1050, the TSN app, and over on TSN 2.